Welcome to the session, all of you. Today, I had written the NMAT examination at the Nandanam Center here in Chennai. So in this session, we are going to discuss about the NMAT examination and the expected cutoff of the exam. I'll be taking you through the test pattern, some do's and don'ts before going for your examination. We are going to look at the test taking strategy a little bit and previous year's cutoff, as well as what are the kind of distribution of questions which are there in each of the section. And this should give you a really good idea about what to look forward to your NMAT examination whenever you're going to take it up this year. Now, before going to the NMAT examination, there are a few things that you need to keep in mind. First and foremost, you would have received a admit card, which you normally will receive 1 week before your examination date. Take a printout of that admit card, because without that admit card, they will not allow you to enter the NMAT test center. So carry that admit card with you. Take a black and white printout, that's more than sufficient. Carry your identity proof. So whatever identity proof you have mentioned in the NMAT form, make sure you have that identity proof with you and reach the NMAT center at least 45 minutes before. It takes a lot of time for you to sit there, and then they'll take your photograph and they'll go to check your IDs. It's nice to, reach early, because then you'll have time to settle down. Now, there are a few things that you need to keep in mind about the center, because these centers aren't the best of the centers. So don't carry any heavy bag, because the storage space in these centers are limited. Don't wear a watch. If you're carrying your mobile or a wallet, keep it very safe. If you have somebody who is waiting for you, hand it over to them rather than keeping in the storage almiras. You can carry water, a 500 ml small bottle, a transparent bottle. They're allowing everybody to take it inside. Don't carry any sheets of paper, pen. It's not necessary, because the three rough sheets will be given to you at the time you enter. And you can also ask for extra sheets as you continue with your test. A pen is also provided by GMAT. So you will have a proper pen and rough sheets to do your calculation. The test is for 120 minutes, 2 hours paper, but you will have another additional 15 minutes given to you. You can log into your test after you have been assigned your computer. You'll get your password given to you by the person, the invigilator who is there. And your GMAT ID is your login, and your password is what the invigilator has given you. The test starts with an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, just for 2 minutes. You need to sign that up. Then you have another 3 minutes to select the section order. So I went with the order of quants first, followed by language skills, and then the logical reasoning. You can choose whatever you are comfortable with. Do few mocks and make yourself comfortable with the flow of the exam, so that you know what exactly to choose when you're sitting there. You have 3 minutes to do that, and then you have 10 minutes to understand the interface. You can go through the interface, check out all the buttons, and it will actually prompt you to scroll down, move next, so that you become familiar with the entire test interface. Do that, and then you start your test. Initial process will take you 15 minutes, and that 15 minutes is given to you, but then you may not take even 15 minutes, and you can still, skip and start the test. But I would suggest that you spend reasonable time to understand the interface if you're taking the NMAT for the first time. The test pattern for NMAT, all of you must be already knowing this, but just to reiterate this once again, the language skills, you'll get 28 minutes. You have 36 questions. The score range is going to be between 12 to 120. Logical reasoning, you'll have 40 minutes in which you have to do 36 questions. Again, score range is between 12 and 120. And you have quantitative skills, where you have 52 minutes to do 36 questions. So you're going to spend a lot more time on the quantitative skills rather than the other two sections. I started with quantitative skills because I'm comfortable spending more time on quants initially rather than at the end of it when I'm already tired with the exam, because I tend to commit silly mistakes if I do that. So I start afresh with the quantitative skills part itself. Total time given to you is 120 minutes, and you have 108 questions. Your score range can be from 36 to 360. Now, it's a computer adaptive test. So as I informed before, you can choose the sequence of the test sections. Test it out in your mocks, understand, which section you have to do first, second, and then third, so that you are very, very familiar with the test when you're doing it there in NMAT. So don't experiment it at the NMAT center, because that's not a good idea. Experiment it during your mocks so that you're sure what you're actually going to do in the actual test. Sectional and the overall score will be available to you right after the test. In fact, I got my test score right after the test, and then within an hour, I got my scorecard on the NMAT portal. Within 1 hour, by 12 o'clock, I had got it. I took the 9 to 11 slot, and by 12 o'clock when I reached home, I already had my scorecard with me. Now let's look at each of these sections and try to understand what is there in each of these sections. So this time the paper for language skill was almost similar to what it was last year. There was not much of a difference out there because most of the kind of questions that you've seen previously in the NMAT paper, the same kind of questions were there this time too. So I got 5 questions in the grammar part where you had error correction, where you had to check the grammatical error given in the sentence. The sentences were underlined. And there was also an option called as no error. So if there is no error in the underlined sentence, you can mark it as no error. Otherwise, you'll have to choose the underlined option where you think is the error. Then there were questions on analogy. So you were given a relationship between two words and you had to choose a similar relationship with the options given to you. There were questions from para-jumbles. Sentences were jumbled and you need to pick and choose which are the correct order of the sentence. There were also sentence equivalence questions, which means there was a sentence given to you in which there were two blanks and you had to pick and choose the correct option of the two words which will fit into that blanks. There were questions on preposition where there were 3 sentences given to you and each of the sentence one preposition was missing. And you had to choose the right preposition in those places. And from the option, you have to then pick up the correct option. I got 3 reading comprehension. One of them was a very long reading comprehension of about 600 to 650 words. The other 2 were really short. One of them was technical based on RNA and DNA. There was another one which was short again, which was based on the vault in Antarctica, the seed vault. And then there was the longer one was on democracy and dictatorship. These questions in the reading comprehension were really easy. The reading was also very easy to look at. There was one question on the tone of the passage. And other than that, the reading comprehension had nothing very difficult about it. It is for anybody who has practiced a reasonably good number of reading comprehension, this would be an easy reading comprehension to do. And especially the 2 reading comprehension, which was short, did not take much time to finish up. And I also had one question on sentence completion where a sentence was given and following which there was a blank and you had to choose the sentence which will fit into that blank to complete that particular sentence. So totally you had 28 minutes and you had to finish off all these 36 questions within that given time. NMAT is an adaptive paper. There is no negative marking in this paper, which means you can just mark your question and go ahead. And based on whether you got it right or wrong, the level of the exam will change. But according to me, this paper, there was not much of a level shift and you can just mark your questions and go ahead. And if you're getting a question wrong, don't bother much because your whole idea is to get to the end of the paper before the time gets over. Also, make sure that the first few minutes of your test, you are getting your questions all correct. So let's say out of the 36 questions, at least for the first 10 questions, spend a good time, make sure those questions are correct, and then rush through the paper and try to finish the paper and reach the last question and answer that by the time the 28 minutes is over. Now, this was an easy part of the NMAT paper. Every year, the cutoff of language skill goes higher. Mostly students score better in the language skills paper as well. So this wasn't that tough. And anybody who has practiced the NMAT pattern of questions, you will find it very easy. Especially the prepositions were easy. The analogy was easy. The parajumble, because it has got options, it was easy. If you're good at grammar, you will find most of the grammatical error which was given were easy ones. And even the reading comprehension this time was easy as compared to the previous year. So I feel that overall the paper was an easy paper to do. You should be able to score more than 80 marks if you're good at English. And if you have practiced well, you should be able to score 90 plus mark in this section. Then comes the logical reasoning section. In the logical reasoning section, there were 2 input-output questions that I got. Each of these questions had 4 sub-questions under that. I got only one analytical reasoning set, which was a linear arrangement kind of a set. And this had 4 questions, although it looked very complicated. But when I did it, I realized that the question set was very easy. And all the 4 questions were direct questions. So you can just answer the questions without much of a hassle. There was one question from syllogism, and there were 19 questions from critical reasoning. Now, if you see here, I put up this table out here. The 19 questions that I got, 5 of them were from course of action, 4 of them were conclusions. There were no strengthening of argument, but there were 2 questions from weakening of argument. And then there were 6 questions on assumptions and arguments. And there was 1 question on implicit statement and 1 on facts. So as every year, this year also critical reasoning was the heaviest part of the entire logical reasoning section. And you need to go well prepared for this because if you're not prepared, you will not be able to answer these questions well because it's pretty confusing to look at the option. So do a good practice. If you have the NMAT by GMAT book, go through that and do all the questions. If you don't have that, whatever material you are having, make sure that you go thoroughly into it. Each kind of question, make sure that you understand how to answer these questions. There is one puzzle that was there, a number puzzle. And I had one very simple question on set theory, a 3-set question. And there was one Venn diagram question, which was, again, a very simple one. One question which came from ordering, which I put as others here. So totally 36 questions, 19 of them from critical reasoning part and or verbal reasoning part, I would rather say. And then the rest of them were puzzles, input, output, and analytical reasoning sets. Now, this paper is not easy to do, the logical reasoning, because you only have 40 minutes and you have to rush through the 36 questions. Some of the critical reasoning and the verbal reasoning questions were long reads. So make sure that you rush through the paper. Don't spend too much time on each question of verbal reasoning. Read whatever you think is the right answer, mark and go ahead. As before, make sure you spend good 10 to 15 minutes on the first few questions and get them right, so that you rush through the paper after that and finish off the entire paper in the given time and see all the questions which are there in the paper. Now let's go to the quant section. In the quant section, you get 52 minutes. So there's a lot of time given to you for doing the 36 questions paper. Now it may look like, it's an easy task. It is not. Quants was reasonably tough. It is difficult to finish off all the questions, but still I would suggest you to finish off all the questions so that you don't land up in any penalty. Now, I had 2 data interpretation sets in the question. One of them did not even have a graph or a table. It was just a statement-based question followed by 4 questions. I also had another one, which was the line graph and the bar graph put together. Both of them put together, there were 8 questions. There were 4 questions from data sufficiency, one of them from AP-GP chapter, arithmetic progression chapter to be precise, and 2 of them from number system and 1 from arithmetic. And there were no geometry questions in my paper, but my paper was PNC and probability heavy with 5 questions from there. Arithmetic had 10 questions, and very surprisingly, profit and loss, I had 6 questions coming from that chapter, and one each from ratios, time and work, interest, and percentages. And there were 4 questions from number system, out of which one was from factors, and the other 2 were general numbers-based questions. In this paper, I'm very sure a lot of you will find a struggle to finish off the paper. But as I said, if you don't know something and you feel the question is wrong, mark and go ahead. Don't wait for solving questions by taking a lot of time. You will not be able to finish the paper. Spend time in the first 10 questions, and after that, run through the question and make sure that you reach the end of the paper and you are able to answer all the easy questions, and that should get you the score without much of a problem. Now let's look at the previous year's cutoff of NMAT. So I put the cutoff from 2020 onwards. So 2020, 21, 22, and 2023. And you will see that the cutoff hasn't varied much. The 2020 paper had the same sectional cutoff across all the 3 sections with the 235. Whereas in the last 3 years paper, the cutoff has varied between 232 and 234. And in all of these paper, if you see, the logical reasoning cutoff was at 71, 72. And the quantitative cutoff was between 69 and 71, and the language skills had a higher cutoff compared to the other 2 sections. Now, this is for the NMIMS MBA core and the HR. There should not be much of a change in the cutoff this year too. The paper, although looked a bit more easier as compared to the last year paper that I attempted, according to me, the expected cutoff this year is going to be ranging between 75 to 78 for language skills, 71 to 74 for logical reasoning skill, and 70 to 73 for the quantitative skills. Overall, if you get between 232 and 235, you should be able to be in that range where you're clearing the cutoff. I would say to be safe, you need to be scoring 235 plus, right? So that's what it looks like right now, and gun for it. And I'm sure that you will be able to scale up your score if you're actually going to do well in the language skills paper, because logical reasoning and quantitative skills, it's not that easy to scale up the score, especially the quantitative skills section. If you're good at logical reasoning and verbal reasoning, you'll be able to do that in the logical reasoning section as well. So overall, it looks like 232 to 235. And to be very safe, you can look at scoring more than 235. It's not a difficult examination. It is not difficult to get the score as well. Just do a few mocks and go for the exam, and you should be able to crack it. Do a good practice from the NMAT by GMAT booklet or any other study material that you have, and that should be enough to do it. So the key here is to look at math section and make sure you clear the cutoff of math section. Look at verbal reasoning and critical reasoning because those are areas where you will get a lot of question in the logical reasoning section. Reading comprehension part, make sure that you are able to attempt all the 3 reading comprehension passages and finish off all the questions in the paper. So if I look at an overall strategy for the paper, make sure that you spend in each section enough time to get your first 10 questions correct, rush through the paper, and then make sure that in the given time, you are seeing all the question, marking all the question, and finishing off the paper so that you don't land up with any penalty. It is an adaptive paper, but it does not give you quite a lot of change in terms of the level of question that you get. So I don't think that should bother you. Your task must be to finish off the entire questions that is there in each section so that you don't land up with a penalty in the score. So that's all for today. I hope this was useful, and I would wish you best of luck for your NMAT 2024. Do a good practice and go and write the exam. You should be able to clear the cutoff without much of a problem.